K-Reality, an ecstasy and ketamine trip report on shroomery, scattered to fuck. For several months leading up to this experience in the summer of 2010, I had raked up a catalogue of first-time drug experiences. I had tried LSD, I had started taking cocaine and ecstasy at clubs and parties, I had my first K-hole in the toilets of a downtown club, and I had been smoking weed non-stop for basically 2 years, not to mention occasional over-the-counter stuff like dextromethorphan, Xanax and Ritalin. Since then I have tried shrooms several times, as well as salvia and San Pedro. After discovering the K-hole, I threw myself into the surreal world of ketamine, using at least every week, K-holing being my priority. Within months I already categorised myself as an experienced ketamine user. By chance one night, I ended up doing a relatively small amount of ketamine and ecstasy together, and the wonderful blissed out body state and meditative mindset it put me in opened my eyes to the sick combination that is kitty flipping. The above is a simple precursor to my second experience of E and K, which went as follows. For around a month and a half my parents had left my brother and I alone in the house and gone abroad. I instinctively invited two of my best friends and trippers, let's call them M and D, around to stay for the duration to smoke copious amounts of ganja and rave as much as possible. We had amazing weed, seriously good e-pills and medical grade ketamine. My mindset was pretty much set on rave, and wasn't going to shift despite my little brother's protests. On this particular night we popped 1 E each and drove off to a local bar at around 9 PM. Once we'd got there I immediately lost M and D and got chatting to some other mates whom were there, gurning my ass off, drinking and generally being very sociable. I then met up with another mate of mine, B, and we sat outside the bar in his car smoking weed. About an hour and a half after we got there, M and D pull up outside the bar in my car with a few girls to take back to my house. B and another friend S came along with us. On the way back all of us ate another E. Feeling pretty buzzed, scattered but fucking on top of my game to be fair. When we got back to my house I immediately turned on my speakers and started DJing. A trippy mix of various minimal, tech house and techno. The girls dancing on my lawn and my friends were trying to get lucky, being high on E and smoking weed. At this point I started sniffing K and crushed up ecstasy pills mixed together. And I vaguely remember D getting some more E down my neck at this time, which literally blew me into the K-hole borderlands, a very surreal place. By this point it was around 11 PM. From then on, the night is a blur. I will try and describe what happened to the best of my recall though. My first visuals were shroom-like but with less detail. More grid-like patterning of small purple and red shapes across my vision that persisted most of the night. At one point everything in my vision was connected by tiny red threads that would melt as I tried to grab them from the air, but reform as soon as I looked away. My laptop screen bulged out of the front of my laptop, looking textured and deep. My depth perception was seriously altered. Everything looked very real however and convincing, yet in another way it really wasn't. At one point I remember I looked up from my laptop at my speakers. They were covered in loads of large metallic blue neon ants crawling all over them. I then looked around as I realised I was actually tripping quite hard. Luckily the E didn't leave much room for headspace, and the only way I could describe my cognitive function would be scattered to fuck, with zero short-term memory. It was around this point I started hallucinating people, security guards to be exact. I looked one way along the front of my house and there were 4 or 5 of these dark figures sitting and standing. I looked the other way and saw the exact same. I peered down my garden and saw that yes, these fuckers were everywhere. At this point I startled the girls by shouting in their general direction, "Get the fuck off my lawn!" directed at the dark fiends. My friend D reassured them that I was just on drugs and that everything was okay. A period of time after this I decided to step down from my DJing, which is an autonomous skill I can perform as fucked up as I like. After B telling me repeatedly that there was a devil in my laptop, so I decided to go for a walk down the garden, my peripherals making shit up out of nothing. I kept seeing animals darting about and I couldn't get quite a look at them, just the shapes. I approached a tree in my garden and orbiting around this tree like Saturn's rings were thousands of bright tiny beads of mercury, along with thousands of amoeba-like creatures swimming patterns across my vision. This was fucking amazing, to be honest, and to this day the coolest thing I have ever seen while tripping. I next remember walking back up to the house and, on the way, encountering M and D. Their faces were contorted as if by some strange lens or the camera toy that you get on Apple Macs. I found I could move their facial features around at will. I found this highly amusing and tried to tell them what the hell was going on, and surprisingly I think they understood. I headed back up to the house. This is my last memory while peaking. The next thing I remember, I was sitting under the table in the early hours of the morning, after all but M had gone to bed in a pair of shorts, while he was sat at the table wrapped in blankets, freezing his arse off, smoking weed. I was surprisingly warm and was just coming back to baseline. Despite the persisting hallucinations, at one point I looked out from under the table and saw a black cat staring at me clear as day. As soon as I moved my eyes away from it though, it was gone. Suddenly my attention was drawn to a strange object wobbling from side to side in the breezeless night. I pick it up and examine it. It looks like a piece of burnt blue nylon rope, but something seems amiss. I say to M, "Dude, what the fuck is this shit?" M assures me that it is a huge bud of weed. Unconvinced, I throw the bud away. M commands me to retrieve the bud after I did this, so I find what still appears to be a piece of shitty rope. As I pick it up, it morphs between my fingers into the most beautiful bud of purple haze, with flowing broad purple leaves and crystals all over. "Dude, this is purple haze, man. Holy crap, when did we get that?" His friend once again assures me it's just the usual shashamane that we get. But as I look back at it, it changes once again into normal bud. I see this and promptly put it in my pipe and smoke it. I then remember asking M where all those girls had gone. Throughout the night, if you had asked me how many there had been, I would have guessed at least 8 or 10. Well, it turns out there were only 4, and they had left hours ago. Ketamine quite often gives me the feeling that there is an extra person in the room, or that they were missing someone. E seems to multiply that effect by 10. I think somewhere around this point I went to bed. In conclusion, this is a crazy but thoroughly enjoyable combination. I would recommend it to anyone who wants a slightly different psychedelic experience compared to, say, shrooms. I feel that in some ways E unlocks ketamine's potential to create open-eye visuals. I always envisioned this as the ecstasy taking all the weird stuff from the depths of a K-hole and blasting it onto our waking reality. Oh, and another thing. If you want to get the most out of this combination, find a dark basement, minimal lighting, loud speakers, good friends, and trip the fuck out until you don't know what day it is, where you are, or what you are doing. This is what me and my friends did about twice a week until our time with the house was up. But I can barely remember those times coherently now, and they were pretty much ineffable.